So welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about the entrepreneur's mindset. 5 things, just 5 things successful entrepreneurs do to be unstoppable. And don't you want to be unstoppable? Today, we have 2 fabulous presenters, Lauren and Candace Henry, who are going to share their knowledge and enthusiasm and help you with this process. But before I introduce them, I have to do a little homework. So I'd like to just tell you that SCORE, this is being brought to you by the Minnesota chapter of SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit, nationwide nonprofit organization, and we are independent resource partners of the Small Business Administration. SCORE offers, and this is really important, free and confidential business mentoring. Never have to pay a fee for it. All of the SCORE mentors are experienced people who are interested in sharing their expertise with you. Our chapter, which is the Minnesota chapter, has nearly 90 volunteers. We serve Manatee and Sarasota counties, but truthfully, I have mentors in other countries. I have one in Argentina as well as California. So we serve a large area, and our chapter was recently recognized as a district chapter of the year. In the 50 years since SCORE has founded, they have helped over 11 million clients. In what stages should you contact SCORE? Stages of your business development? Well, actually, all stages. You're just thinking about opening up a business. A lot of our SCORE clients come that way, that they are thinking about an idea and they don't know if it would be profitable. Well, let's kick it around and we'll figure out with you whether or not it's a good idea. Or you've opened your business and now you realize that maybe you need some help with some information, or you want to grow your business, or lastly, you want to sell or close your business, or alternatively, you want to buy a business. Contact one of our mentors. We have people who are dedicated to just that, buying, selling, and closing, and they can help you so that you get the most out of your business. I encourage you to visit our website, score.org/Minnesota. There you can request a mentor, nice big button to request a mentor. You can look at mentor profiles and select your own mentor if you would like. You can look at all of our workshops. As you know, we have weekly workshops every Wednesday at noon. You can find us here presenting topics of interest, or you can do a search on the website for templates or recorded other podcasts. I think my mouth isn't working today. I don't know. Lastly, I'd like to thank our sponsors and community partners. They help us keep the lights on. And these are amazing supporters of ours. You'll notice that many of our sponsors are actually banks. If you come into a bank with a SCORE mentor, they are going to pay attention to you a lot more than they will if you just walk in by yourself. So without further ado, Lauren and Candace, are you there? I see, there they are. Turn on your mic and I am going to stop sharing. If you would start sharing your slides. By the way, while you're doing that, let me reinforce the fact that you all will be getting a link to this recording, and you're also going to be getting a copy of these slides. So invaluable resources for you. So take it away, Lauren and Candace. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Diane. We're so delighted to have the opportunity to invest some time together with all of you today. So welcome to the Entrepreneur's Mindset Workshop. We are so excited that you're going to be a part of this session with us. So this is really important because business acumen actually isn't enough. 50% of businesses end up not making it past year 5, but those who do reach great success have mastered what we call the entrepreneur's mindset. So you're here because you are ambitious, you want to have that advantage as well. And so that's what we're going to be showing you today, the secrets of that mental game so that you can avoid the roadblocks that are self-induced that end up stopping a lot of people from reaching what they are capable of. As we mentioned, there is a note sheet available. That way you can follow along, write down some of those key points and start applying it right away to your scenario. So if you don't have that yet, you can just head over to this link and it will be a direct link there for you as well. So that's at aretios.com/score notes, and it should be in the chat for you.
But before we dive into our topic, we thought it would be good to go ahead and introduce ourselves a little bit. So here's few things to know about us. We are Candace and Lauren Henry. We are sisters, which is a fun thing to work together. We're also university professors, and we teach courses in professional and organizational and personal leadership. And we are co-founders of a company called Aretios, where we work with entrepreneurs and young professionals to help them really learn how to lead well and live their best life. And so we bring over a decade of study in leadership and personal growth and 13 years of experience as leadership trainers. And so through our work as success and influence strategists, we really work to help people clarify their purpose and develop their influence so that way they can live a life full of success and excitement and meaning.
So in today's session, what we're going to be showing you is how to reframe failure to your advantage. We're going to look at the 4 hidden habits of the super successful, and we're going to share a simple but very powerful science-backed strategy that's going to help you to boost your confidence and your profits and get better, faster results. We're going to teach you how to fast track your success every day using things and practices that are already likely part of your life, but we're going to show you how to use them to your advantage instead of to your detriment, and ways to gain that success mindset.
So let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off with this quote because I think it's really fascinating. It says, "The mind has a powerful way of attracting things that are in harmony with it, good or bad." So mindset is something that's allowed hundreds of successful people all throughout history and all throughout various industries to be able to defy seemingly impossible odds, to really become these people, these heroes and leaders that we admire. So in the words of Dr. Carol Dweck, take a look at this on the screen. She was a pioneer in the study of mindset, and she's also an American psychologist. She says, "It doesn't matter whether someone is gifted or not. What does matter is a person's belief that they can succeed and prevail." So where does this belief come from then, right? If that's something that determines our success, and then how do we also get it? 2 words, success mindset. And this is something that's really important for us as entrepreneurs because we're charting our own path, right? We're doing something different that people maybe haven't done before. We're scaling that mountain. And it's a journey that's filled with a lot of challenges, a lot of potential rejection, and certainly unexpected obstacles. But if we do have the right kind of mindset, then we can not only overcome the challenges, but we can also actually enjoy the process. And that's the good part of it, right? We can grow from that. We can achieve incredible success. So in life, our mindset kind of acts as this invisible X factor, if you will. It becomes the difference between a person's success or their failure. And we see this in our own personal lives, in our business, when we're working with clients. I mean, it applies no matter what part of your life or industry you find yourself in.
So make a note of this on your note sheet or wherever you're taking notes. Our mindset can determine our success or our failure. In fact, research from Mayo Clinic shows us that not only does our mindset determine our success, but it also impacts our physicality, meaning that a positively focused success mindset can literally translate to lower cortisol, less stress, increased lifespan, better immunity. And so it really is worth building that positive and unshakable success mindset. As humans, every single action that you and I take starts in our minds. So how we think and perceive the world ends up shaping how we feel, how we behave, the choices that you and I make, and then consequently, the results that we see in our lives and in our businesses. So in short, mindset really does affect everything that we do, making it absolutely essential that we maintain and cultivate a mindset that will propel us in the direction of positive growth and the achievement of our goals.
I think the challenge for many of us, though, is we're all probably familiar with the concept of mindset, right? That's not a new thing. But what most people don't talk about is exactly how to create that right kind of mindset in a very practical way. What are the steps to get the results that we're all looking for, especially for us as entrepreneurs? You know, and maybe we look around and we think, well, maybe successful people are just born with it, or they instinctively know how to do this. But it's not something that's reserved for the chosen few, or even something that you do have to be born with. So add this in your notes. An unshakable success mindset can be cultivated, and it's not as complicated as you might think. That's great news, right? That means you and I can achieve that. In fact, there's a really interesting study that was done on Tahitian culture, which kind of showed this same concept. So in this culture, the feeling of sadness doesn't exist. Isn't that interesting? So they still experience the emotion of sadness because we're all humans and we all experience those same kinds of emotions. But when they experience that emotion, the feeling they have is not one of sadness like you and I might know. Instead, they actually feel a sense of fatigue. So why is this? Well, they've trained their minds to not have that feeling of sadness. So this study proves that we have the ability to really manage or control the kind of mindset, which then impacts our feelings and impacts our outlook on a certain situation. So we can choose to respond to our circumstances in a different way. That is our choice.
So that brings it down to this key thought right here, that your mindset is your choice. And every day you and I are shaping and choosing to build the kind of mindset that we want. So it's up to us what kind of mindset we want to create for ourselves and for our lives. And it's also important to realize that a lot of the things that are required to build a mindset are things that you and I are already doing, which is good news. So you don't have to feel like you're now adding all these extra things to your to-do list and it requires more work. It's more about understanding what these habits and practices are and then being intentional so that you're using them to your advantage and shaping that success mindset. So we're going to show you in 5 simple steps exactly how to do that.
All right, so step number 1 is to evaluate your input. And if you're following along with the note sheet, you can see the numbers there. This goes in by number 1 is to evaluate your input. So just as we focus on what we feed our body in order to feel our best, have good physical health and good energy levels, we also need to give that same kind and amount of attention to the information that we consume to maintain good mental health as well. So input is what that boils down to. And input is that invisible influence that kind of shapes all of us. So many people will watch, read, or listen to things all day long without giving any thought to the kind of impact that has on their daily life. There was a study that I find so fascinating. It shows that adults in the United States spend a little over half their day, I think it was somewhere about 12 hours and 21 minutes, so almost 50% of their day, consuming some form of media. And get this, that statistic doesn't even include any sort of reading of printed content. So that's a lot of information on a daily basis.
But consuming information isn't necessarily the problem, because I'm sure you would all agree that that's kind of part of life as you and I know it. So it's more about the kind of information that you and I choose to take in, because what we focus on shapes who we become. So the kind of input that we consume colors the thoughts that we end up thinking, which then impacts how we feel, the actions that we take. And so we need to be intentional about seeking out good things, positive material that's going to help us grow and move forward personally and professionally. So if you're wondering where to start, first of all, you've already taken a good step by being part of an educational session like this. So continue to look for inspiring podcasts, books, events that you can attend, things that will give your mind good input. And you can get in the habit of asking yourself this question: is this show, book, music, movie, whatever it is that you're about to consume, is this helping me get better? Is it filling me with positive emotion and energy and adding value to my life? If the answer is no, then maybe you want to think twice about investing your time there.
So we're actually going to practice this right now. So using the note sheet, we're going to take the next few moments to evaluate our input. So take a look at the different things that you consume on a regular basis, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to. Even the conversations that you're a part of are a type of input. So think through your day and write down everything you consume in each of those categories from the moment you wake up all the way to when you fall asleep. So
on
what
a
are you,
typical basis?
yes, what are you watching? If there's certain news or movies or
Social
TV
media
shows,
accounts.
all of those will fall into that. So make a note of a few of those things that you're reading.
Could be news articles, could be books, things that you're listening to, music, podcasts, and conversations that you're part of. And of course, this is something you can come back to, but just start with jotting down a few things so you can get that starting point for yourself in your own life.
When it comes to the conversation, sometimes people are like, what does that mean for my input? So I like to look at this from either, do your conversations take on a positive slant or more of a negative slant? So do you find yourself listening to or maybe participating in conversations that focus on worry or complaining or gossip? Or do you tend to find your conversations centering around possibilities or plans or encouraging people or inspiring thoughts? Let's take a moment, jot that down. Positive or negative conversations, what kind of input are you taking in on a regular basis?
I'll give you a few more seconds there and then we'll move along.
I love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, great minds discuss ideas. So that is important to think about. What are our conversations continuing to center around?
So you can take a look at that note sheet as well. And on the conversations, one of those things you could do is put, plus or minus to see if they're typically more positive or negative. So now let's take a look here and think about one of your thoughts and all of those ideas and see if there's anything else you want to add to that conversations or those input that you're listening to on your notes. And then we're going to use one of our favorite tools that we call start, stop, keep. So this is on the next page of your notes, or you can jot it down on a piece of paper. And you're going to use what you just wrote down as your reference. And we're going to take a look and think about what is one thing you want to start doing in regards to your input. So maybe you want to start listening to a podcast once a week, or maybe you want to start being a part of these webinars once a week so that you're consistently learning, or maybe you want to start reading books on entrepreneurship. So one thing you want to start doing, doesn't have to be overhauling your life, just one thing to start. And then we'll move to the next one, which is stop. Based on the input that you're taking in, what's just one thing that you want to stop doing? You decided maybe that social media account isn't really helping me. It's just kind of wasting my time. Or maybe you want to stop watching or listening to a certain kind of music that's not talking about the life that you want. And then the final one is keep doing. Based on what you are consuming for input, what's one thing there that is helping you? So you want to say, you know what, I want to keep doing this. I've noticed that I'm doing that and it's really working and it's helping me. So just make a note of that there as well. So start, stop, and keep.
Give you a moment to go ahead and jot some thoughts down for each of those. Okay, so step number one was to evaluate your input. We're going to move on to step number 2 of the 5, and that is to create healthy habits. So fill that in next to number 2 on your first page of notes if you're tracking with us. So if you're looking to really fast track your success every day, which I think we all want to do, this is going to be the answer. So habits are incredible time savers. They actually work to help our brains make decisions a lot faster because it avoids conscious deliberation about what we're supposed to be doing. And habits actually make up a large part of our daily activity. It's been said through various studies that somewhere between 40 and 45% of what we do every single day is actually out of habit. And the right ones can actually help us fast track towards success. Somebody once said that the secret to your success lies hidden in your daily routine. So add that into your notes because that's a great thing to remember. That definitely makes me wonder, okay, what is in my daily routine then? I want to make sure I have the right things. So there are 4 habits that we recommend. We call them the 4 power practices, and they are gratitude, setting goals, positive affirmations, and reflection. And so we personally try to make this a habit to practice these every morning and every night. And though these habits are very simple, I'm sure we're familiar with many of them, they're actually very powerful tools for creating that right kind of unstoppable mindset that really produces growth and achievement. So through our study of leadership and personal growth, we kind of came to these 4 power practices by looking very closely at the lives of different successful individuals all throughout time and all throughout different industries. And we're like, what is it that makes them successful? We're like, okay, how do we apply those same habits and practices to our lives? So that way we get results, and we've shared that with our clients so they can get the same kind of results too. And we kept seeing these same recurring themes. And we're like, wait a second, it's all going back to these same 4 power practices of gratitude, goals, affirmation, and reflection. And so they've become something that's been really a vital part, wouldn't you say, of our daily routines. And they help us to both start and end our day on the right note.
So let's take a closer look at these 4 hidden habits of the super successful. And we're going to walk you through them and show you how to implement them in a fast and easy way on a daily basis. So the first one is gratitude. One of the most impactful things that you and I can do is to start every single day with gratitude. Studies actually show us that we can't be stressed and grateful at the same time. Fun fact, can't be stressed and grateful at the same time. And what you and I focus on ends up expanding in our lives. And when we shift our perspective from stress and tension instead to looking at what we have to be grateful for, we end up seeing more of that in our lives because we find what we are looking for. There's a good quote here that I want to share with you. And I think it's so clever, this perspective. And it says, we can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or we can rejoice because thorns have roses. So both the thorns and the roses are there, and we can kind of use that as a metaphor for our own lives. Both the good and the bad things are going to be there. But what is it that we choose to focus on as we start our day? Because that's sort of how we set the lens mentally for the rest of our day. So if we can use gratitude every morning by writing down some things that we're grateful for, and in just a few minutes, we'll talk about applying that. But that's one of those things that can start every single day on the right note with the right perspective is gratitude.
Second one is goals. And this is something that we've worked with several clients on because it's so crucial for honing a person's focus. And sometimes people need help kind of troubleshooting in this process because chances are most of us have tried setting goals before. That's not a new concept, but we may or may not have gotten the results that we wanted from it. I remember one client of ours had some really big ideas of what they wanted to do, but she didn't really have a clear plan of how to make it happen. And so once we taught her how to effectively set her goals, her progress and her productivity skyrocketed. We've seen that in our own life as well. And once you start setting goals the right way, you can achieve things you never even thought were possible. And so one of the easiest ways to start getting more out of your goal setting process is to write them down. Simple, but actually listen to this. So when you write down your goals, just the process of writing them down, this actually makes you 42% more likely to achieve them. So instead of keeping them in your head, we encourage you to write them down. And goals really help us to make that switch.
So the switch that we're talking about is the switch from living in a life where you are surviving in survival mode to instead thriving. Without goals, it's really easy for us, especially as entrepreneurs, to get caught up in a bunch of activities, meaning we're just going from one thing to another, dealing with all of the urgent matters instead of necessarily what is most important. So we end up dealing with all the things that just come up instead of the things that are going to allow us to make the most progress and to get the most momentum going. So if we stay in this survival mode, it's very stressful and it will wear on you over time and can really impede your progress. So instead we want to thrive. How do we do that? We know we can thrive when we know exactly where we are headed and when we have a plan to get there. And so that's what goals do. They help us to be less stressed and be more productive because we know exactly what we're aiming towards. And so when you have that clear goal, then you can say, okay, is this new opportunity or this activity or thing that just came across my desk, is this going to help me make progress toward that goal or not? And it becomes sort of like a compass for all of your decision making that will help you to simplify your process of decision making and boost your progress in a positive direction.
There's actually a fun little question that we like to ask ourselves and our college students and our clients as well. And that is, what is the ROI? And I'm sure we're all familiar with ROI when it comes to our finances. You know, what is your return on investment? But what is the ROI for the activities in your life? Because if you think about it, our time is actually our most valuable currency of all. And we invest that time into different activities. So are the things that you're investing your time and your life into, are they giving you a good return for that investment? Or are there some areas where you can make some adjustments? You know, there's so many good things that can fill up our time and our life. And so that's where that need for priorities really comes into play. You know, that way we don't make shallow progress in, let's say, 20 different areas. Instead, we want to focus our efforts in, let's say, 5 or 6 areas and make remarkable progress in those. As entrepreneurs, obviously, we wear a lot of hats, like Lauren was talking about. We constantly have thousands of tasks and so many different options and ways of doing things, different opportunities to pursue and projects we can work on. And so unless we have those clear goals in place, we can do a lot of things and create a lot of activity, but maybe not make a lot of real progress. I kind of like to think of it this way. So if you've ever done any gardening, you know, on the garden hose, there's a variety of different settings that you can use. So there's 2 that we want to look at just for a second. There's the mist setting and the jet stream setting. So on the mist setting, it's very gentle, right? It doesn't go very far, but it's very broad, covers a lot of ground. The jet stream setting, though, when you turn it to that, it'll send the water really, really far with a lot of power and force because it's concentrated, right? It's all going in one smaller direction instead of a broad brush approach. That is the same way that we have to think about our time and our effort and energy and focus, right? We can choose to be that garden hose and make broad but minimal progress in a lot of things, or we can get focused, shift over to that jet stream setting, and then go really far, go with a lot of power and make some incredible progress. So as an entrepreneur, your goals are going to help you switch over to that jet stream setting so you can make that incredible progress towards what you want. And also a quick tip for writing down your goals. So we like to write our goals down as if they've already happened, as opposed to saying something like, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. We would write that as, I'm thrilled to be a New York Times bestselling author in May 2025, or whatever date you want to accomplish that. Much more powerful.
All right, the next power practice is affirmations. A lot of people will set goals and try to create new habits, but they can still find it very challenging and difficult to make those lasting life changes that will get real results. So what could be causing that? How do we fix it? This is where affirmations can come into our aid. One of the clients that we worked with had attached her identity to a challenge that she was having in her life. And we could see this through the way that she was talking about it. She was always speaking with this victim mentality, and it kept holding her back, and she kept using that as the excuse every time. And because of that, it was really challenging for her to make any progress forward and get the changes that she actually desperately wanted in her life. So what we recommend is someone who finds themselves in a situation like this, where it's really difficult to make those lasting life changes, is to tap into this practice of affirmation so that you can get rid of limiting beliefs, because that's really what it comes down to. We have to go to the root of the issue and change those beliefs, and instead build and reinforce positive beliefs, new thought patterns that will create the right mindset that will help us to achieve the things that we want. Because here's a key thought right here.
So words actually create our world in which we live. So we have to really start becoming aware of the thoughts and the words that we use on a regular basis. And I would encourage you to catch yourself when you find yourself reinforcing a limiting belief. Set your new direction. Say, you know what, that's not going to be true about me anymore. So take that thought captive and switch your thoughts to start thinking about what you do want and start reinforcing that. And that process might feel a little unnatural at first, right? Because we built those habits to think a certain way. But over time, if you continue catching and switching, you're going to reprogram your mind to believe and act in accordance with that new truth. So affirmations, when we use those on a daily basis, that is consistently feeding our brains the truth that we want it to embody, instead of allowing it to revert back to the patterns that are our old ways of thinking. Okay, so the fourth power practice is reflection. And this is actually the discipline of the most successful people that's actually the most often overlooked or even forgotten. I think so often, especially in entrepreneur culture, there's this idea of hustling harder, right? And doing more and pushing harder and faster and stronger and just working until you maybe burn out, right? And that's actually not what the most successful people have done throughout history. So when we were studying their lives and studying their careers, we're like, wait a second, we keep coming back to this idea of reflection. And people would leave open spaces in their day to sometimes just think. And at first when we saw this, we were like, that seems very unproductive.
A little counterintuitive,
Definitely.
like wasting time. We all as entrepreneurs typically have long to-do lists of things we could be doing. What are they doing? Just thinking.
But what was so interesting is that when they set aside that time to think and reflect, it actually allowed them to be more creative, to be operating with more wisdom and to be proactive and more effective in the things that they were doing. And I think that's something that we all want a little bit more of in our life. So reflection helps us to find and gain wisdom found in every single day. No matter what happens in your day, you can always find a win or a lesson, an observation, an idea, or even something you're like, you know what, that doesn't work, so I'm not going to try that again, right? Something that made you think.
And so that's one of those perspectives that can really be a light bulb moment for us, especially as entrepreneurs, where you might have a challenging day or something didn't go how you expected. If you can gain something from it, then you can still be better off no matter what happens throughout your day. So speaking of reflection, it's especially important to do this on a periodic basis to reflect on the progress that you've made, the lessons you've been learning. That way you really gain from your experience and don't repeat 1 year of experience 20 times. We want to make sure we're growing each year. So we're going to help you practice some of those power practices right now using your note sheet. So there's going to be a 1-page template that you'll see, and you're going to be able to start practicing with gratitude. So you'll see up there writing in 3 things that you're grateful for. These can be big or small. It doesn't really matter. It could be that you gained a new client, or it could be that you're enjoying the weather today. Remember, we said when we practice gratitude, that puts our minds in the right frame of mind. So go ahead and write down 3 things that you are grateful for in the spaces on your note sheet. And then once you've written the things that you're grateful for, we're going to move to the second power practice, which is goals. And you are welcome to come back to this. There are 5 spaces there, but let's start with at least just one thing that you want to achieve in the next 1 to 12 months. So if you have more that come to mind, feel free to write them down, but start with at least one thing that you want to achieve. Remember, we talked about putting that in the present positive tense, writing it as though it were true for you right now. And the reason we do that is because it's the input that you're giving your mind. And so you want to build the right neural pathways in your brain that will reinforce what you want to be true of you. Three things you're grateful for and one goal that you are looking forward to achieving in the next 1 to 12 months. Okay. So you practiced the first 2 power practices, and we will get back to the other ones in just a few minutes.
Okay, number 3 in our overall 5
Success
things
mindset
is to build your community. It's been said that we are the average of the 5 people that we are closest to. And so one of the ways that we can build a success mindset is to be intentionally investing time with people who actually inspire us to be better, to think differently, or to actually achieve more, right? So one of the secrets to maintaining that unstoppable success mindset is to keep yourself surrounded by a community of people who will actually help you to do that. And sometimes we don't give a lot of thought and attention to the people that we invest the most time with. And for us as entrepreneurs, this is even more essential that we think about this, because sometimes we can find ourselves doing a lot of work alone, right? And so we need to be intentional about finding other people that we can connect with, because sometimes it's not provided for us if we're not going into a traditional day-to-day 9 to 5. And so we need people to help us stay encouraged along the way, because entrepreneurship is certainly a roller coaster kind of journey, right? There's ups, there's downs, and we need people who can be there for us and build us up along the way. According to Mayo Clinic, there was a really fascinating study that was talking about this exact concept.
So it said that people who are around those with negative attitudes and a negative outlook on life, it ends up increasing the stress level that people have in their bodies. It inhibits the body's ability to manage difficult situations in a healthy way. Now, on the contrary, if people are around those who are practicing positive self-talk, it will help them to build the right kind of mindset that will reap the benefits of increased lifespan, of improved immunity, less propensity to depression, and decreased stress and improved overall physical well-being. I don't know about you, but all of that sounds good to me. So this can look like our peers, our friends, our family members, mentors, coaches. All of those people can help us be inspired and make sure that we are having that environment of positive encouragement and input in our lives. So a few important questions that we can ask ourselves are, first of all, do your close friends make you feel encouraged and uplifted when you're around them? You got to think about it. I mean, sometimes we might have some good friends in our lives, but if we take a second to reflect, we might realize that they're not actually helping us move in a positive direction of growth. Maybe they're just keeping us where we are or even holding us back. So that might be a point where we want to think about how much time we invest with them. So you might want to adjust your schedule on how much time you invest with them so that you're around those who are going to be a good influence on your life.
The second question is, are you making connections with new people? Not only does that add interest and excitement and fun to life to continue making new connections, but it also helps to really broaden our perspectives or to give us new ideas or ways of thinking. And so connecting with a community is such a crucial component to maintaining that right kind of mindset. And we have to be intentional about surrounding ourselves with other like-minded, high-achieving individuals who will support and propel our ambitions forward. So when we talk about building your community, we actually have a simple framework that we want to share with you that is called the spheres of influence. And it's really helpful in bringing some structure to what this actually looks like. So that way we can be more intentional about building the right kind of community that we all need.
So let's take a look at the spheres of influence that every single one of us has. And you can fill this in on your notes, starting with the inside smallest sphere. So the first one is the close circle. And this includes people like your family and close friends. Oftentimes you'll find yourself investing the most amount of time with this group of people. Then if we zoom out one level, we see our common circle of influence. These are the people that you interact with on a regular basis. Could be coworkers, could be peers, people at a gym, in a small group, people at a church or intramural sports team, or even your neighbors. Those are people that you're going to see on a regular basis, maybe not quite as much as your close family and friends, but still quite often. And then if we zoom out to the furthest sphere, that is our context circle of influence. So these are people that you and I come into contact with. So it could be a store clerk, could be a service professional, could be a doctor, hairstylist, people on social media that you interact with, or some customers that you would see on a periodic but not necessarily super frequent basis. So those three spheres of influence are ones that we all have. And if you think about that, that's actually quite a few people. We have our close family and friends. We have our common circle of people that we interact with on a regular basis. And then we have that context circle of people that we just come into contact with as we go throughout our day-to-day lives.
And here's a few things to keep in mind. There are some people in our lives that we just need to avoid. And these are people who are constantly or consistently negative and discouraging. So remember, you have the power to set boundaries in your own life. And that kind of input on a consistent basis will only serve to drag you down. So it's not a wise investment of your time, going back to that idea of currency, right? So remember, people are not necessarily going to meet every single one of your needs for the kind of influence that you're looking for. So find the common areas that you can agree upon and connect on and focus your attention on that. So for example, you might have some connections that really help you with brainstorming business ideas, perhaps your SCORE mentor, right? You can bounce strategies and ideas off of them. You're able to help troubleshoot that with them, and you can kind of work together in a business capacity. But those people may not be the ones to help you move forward, let's say in your fitness journey, unless of course you are in a fitness business, right? So, you can see how each person plays a specific role. So you want to go to somebody who has that experience, who has that insight or understanding in that area. So for us as entrepreneurs, it can be really easy for us to kind of just like let our businesses sort of take over our entire life, because there's a lot of things to do, a lot of tasks on our plates. But the problem is when we neglect the other aspects or elements of our life, it's actually a lot like neglecting to fill up your fuel tank in your car. If there's no fuel in the tank, it doesn't matter how cool or how powerful or how fast your car is, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So we need to be intentional about investing into all of those different elements of life. And we need our community, we need to have people who can help us move forward in each of those aspects. That way we can give our best, we can bring our best to our businesses, because the other elements of life are also being thought of and cared for as well.
And so that's what the power of community can do for us. It can help us to grow forward in our career, our relationships, our health, our spiritual growth, and our lifestyle overall. And we need to bring the best version of us in every area to our business. That way we can really thrive and grow and be our best self. So plus, this is another thing to think about is you never know how connections that you make and ideas that you get from maybe a seemingly unrelated area of your life might bring some really innovative ideas that would actually help you in your business. One of the best ways to innovate as an entrepreneur is to find different strategies that are working in maybe in totally different industry and figure out how to reimagine them for your own business. So you just never know how that might help you. So we're going to take the next few seconds here on your note sheet to fill in who are the people that are in your close, common, and context circles. So there's some space there for you to jot it down or grab a piece of paper. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is to put a positive or a negative sign next to them, just so that you have an idea of most of the time, are these conversations helping me? Are they uplifting? Are they positive? Or are they focused around worry, like complaining and negative things that are pulling you down? So you can kind of rate, how you feel around them. And that's just going to give you that guide about how you're going to invest your time. What's the ROI? What are we getting here? That way you get that right kind of input.
I think something to consider, as you're jotting those down, if there are certain groups that tend to have more of that negative aspect to them, think about how can I then shift to find more of a positive group. And remember that boundaries, sometimes people get a little confused over boundaries because they think it's a bad thing, or they think that it will hurt or damage the relationship. But remember that boundaries are actually very healthy and very important for you as an individual and for relationships in general, because it can be just as beneficial for the other person to have a boundary in their life as it is for you. So that's actually a very good thing to consider. So make a few notes, positive or negative slant for each of those groups.
Okay.
Karen was writing, sometimes it's your family members that are negative.
That is true.
And
so that's where you have to be, intentional about how much time you invest and use that strategy that we were saying of what is an area where you can get positive input from them or something that they can be a topic of conversation that would be helpful, and focus your conversations and thoughts when you're around them on that idea. But it's true. Sometimes it is those people who are close to us, and you just got to, be intentional and also set the example of being that source of positive input for them as well. All right, so we'll give you a few more seconds there to just fill in some of those thoughts for your own circles of influence. Okay, and then we're going to go to the next step here, which is any changes that you want to make. So based on what you wrote down, are there any edits that you want to make for how you're investing your time, or the people that you want to look for? Maybe you don't have a mentor and you want to find one, someone who can help you go forward in any one of those areas, whether that's your career and your business, or in your health and fitness, or the designing the kind of lifestyle that you want. So think about any little edits or adjustments that you want to make in your spheres of influence.
And again, you can always come back to any of these later and fill it out in more detail. And that's a great thing to do, to even just reflect on these at a later point in time and really be intentional and say, okay, am I looking at every aspect of my life, and how can I grow and find other people who will continue to propel me in a positive direction?
Okay, step number 4 on our success mindset plan here is to shift your self-talk. So in order to build that unshakable success mindset that we all want, we have to master this inner dialogue. So what do we mean by that? We are talking about what is it that you're saying to yourself, because it's the way that we all talk to ourselves. Admit it, you talk to yourself. And the truth is we all do. We all have this running dialogue that's going on in our heads. And it's what we're saying, when something goes well, what do you say? Or when something goes wrong, what is going on in your head? Mastering your self-talk is an absolutely crucial component to your success as an entrepreneur too, because there will be those times when you pitch a client and they say no. Or when you pitch someone and they say yes, what's happening? Are you saying like, oh no, you messed up again? Or are you saying, oh, that was a fluke, you just got lucky? Or are you saying, that's all right, you're going to get it next time, and well done, your hard work paid off? So what is it that you are saying to yourself? A lot of people fall prey to this self-induced roadblock of their inner critic getting the best of them, but that doesn't have to be you. It is something that you can adjust, because a lot of people have great ideas. And so we don't have to allow ourselves to fall prey to this. And instead we can persist and move forward.
So in order to build that success mindset, that unstoppable mindset, we have to become aware of that inner dialogue that Lauren was talking about. It's really easy to perhaps encourage a friend or a peer, but sometimes we don't speak to ourselves as kindly. And so be thoughtful about that. A simple way to do that switch, to master that inner dialogue, is to catch yourself. When we kind of go down that track, the same way we were talking about earlier, how can we catch that and switch? Instead, tell ourselves, I can do this, right? I maybe found a way that didn't work, but I can keep going and I can do better next time.
And this is a simple science-backed strategy. If we read statements of positive self-talk and affirmation, and we've included one in there for you to use, it is a science-backed strategy that will boost our confidence and our profits. Think about it this way. If you're about to go give a really important presentation to clients maybe, or for something for your business, and you were just thinking about all the defeats, all the things you were worried about, and you go to walk in there, people are going to sense that. It's really hard to stand up in front of that room of people when you were just focused on everything that's been going wrong. But instead, if you were thinking about all the things that were going right, and you were building yourself up with the right kind of self-talk in your brain, and then you go up there to present, your confidence is you're going to exude confidence and strength, and people are going to sense that. They're going to want to be a part of that. They're going to see your passion, and that's going to help you to be so much more effective in sharing your thoughts and in coming across as the successful entrepreneur that you are, and to create more of what you want in your life. So it's really important to practice that on a regular basis, and to do that catch and switch that Candace was talking about. Studies show that negative self-talk can cause people to experience higher levels of stress and anxiety, health issues. But on the contrary, that positive self-talk is associated with less stress, better health, better performance. We all want that for our businesses, better learning, and better relationships. And relationships are so important to every aspect of your business as you're building those connections to create more of what you desire.
And as an entrepreneur, you're not able to do your best work or close your biggest deals if you're stressed or if you're anxious or feeling defeated. So we have to shift our self-talk so that way it works for us and not against us, because it's always happening, but we get to choose which direction it's going to go. So we would encourage you, this is something we do on a very regular basis. We'll read, listen to positive affirmations every day, put them in visible places, and that helps to build that optimism, that confidence that allows us to move forward with determination and success.
So you can print that one out if you want and put it up somewhere where you're going to see it. Or maybe there's a quote or something that you want to put on your computer so that you see it. And when you need that, when you have that negative thought, instead you read that positive one and give your brain the right kind of input.
So we're going to go back to that little template there, and there is a space for affirmations. And so you can start filling in some of your own, actually, if there's some ideas that come to mind. A great thing to think about is, what kind of qualities does the person who achieves the goals that you were talking about accomplishing, what sort of qualities do they have, right? What do you want to be true of you? So we would encourage you to come back to that and fill that out with some ideas, some qualities, some attributes that you want to be true of you as well.
That could be confidence, that could be punctuality, that could be someone who finishes what they start, and you want to write it in that same present positive tense. I am a person of confidence and I finish what I start, as an example of something that you can put in as an affirmation.
All right, so the fifth and final step is to change your perspective. And what we're referring to here is your perspective of failure. Failure is one of those things that actually stops a lot of people because they either avoid failure, they're afraid of failure, and so consequently that actually keeps them from experiencing and living the life they're actually capable of. And so the way that successful entrepreneurs and successful leaders combat this is by using a simple reframe that regardless of your industry, regardless of where you come from in life, it will work and change your results dramatically.
And that is, failure is not the enemy. So that's that big perspective shift that we have to make. So if failure is not the enemy, then we don't need to fear it. And instead we see failure as feedback. If something doesn't go the way we wanted, it's just showed us that that's not a route that we want to do next time. So we can now move forward with this newfound wisdom when we make those next choices.
And that is also something kind of goes back to disassociating our identity from our performance, right? We're more than our jobs, we're more than our results, and our value isn't determined by that, right? It doesn't matter who we are, we have value, and it doesn't have to simply be based on our quotas or our outcomes. And so in order to reach our fullest potential, whether in life or in business, we have to let go of that limiting belief and decide failure is not our enemy. And so this isn't to ignore failure, but it's also to say, you know what can I learn from this, right? A great skill that we can develop is to say, all right, you know what, I might experience failure or rejection, but I can either get stuck in that place and not get back up, or I can say, okay, how can I learn from this? What can I apply next time? And that resilience is actually what allows us to move forward and continue trying new things.
John Maxwell actually talks about failures as being stepping stones for us on the road to our success. So if we shy away and run away from those experiences, we're only depriving ourselves of what failure can actually teach us and the ways that it can make us stronger. So this isn't to say that you want to go to the other extreme and start failing at everything just so you learn. It's more of a balance here, but we just want to understand and know that, when something happens, we can still learn from it, we can grow from it, and it doesn't have to stop us and keep us from moving forward. So the idea is to look at failure through the lens of optimism. And with that unshakable success mindset, then you won't be deterred by failures. You'll see it as a chance to learn and to grow. And when you can do that, then every day is worth celebrating because you can learn something that will make you wiser for the next one. And here's this key idea that we want to reinforce one more time. And that's, we are more than what we do. Kins was saying we have to disassociate ourselves from our results. And as entrepreneurs, sometimes you'll have those good days and those bad days in terms of results, but that doesn't mean that that is a picture of who you are as a person and the value that you bring.
So we're going to practice this little failure to feedback shift right now. And you can do that on your note sheet or grab a piece of paper and jot this down. So we want you to think about a current or perhaps a recent challenge that you have faced. Maybe something that didn't go as planned, or something that you're currently dealing with and trying to figure out a solution for. So jot that down. And then once you have that, we want you to do that little reframe. So what can you learn from that? What is something that you can use as a teaching opportunity to learn and grow and get better? What advantage can you pull from that? Make a note of that as well.
So of course, this is something you can come back to in further detail if you want to really dissect it a little more and process and reflect on some of those things that you can be learning from as valuable experiences that maybe at first were a little unsettling, but instead they can be a positive growth experience that can actually really teach you something valuable for your life and your business. Okay, so let's go ahead and recap here. Today, we talked about the 5 steps to creating an unshakable success mindset for all of us as entrepreneurs. And this is something that will help you in every area of your life. First, it's evaluating our input, making sure that what we're taking in is helping us to become who we want and to get the results we desire for both our professional and personal lives. Then creating healthy habits, using those things on autopilot that will help us to get that success much faster. Building your community so that we are continuing to be around people who will encourage us to grow and become our best because we become like those that we associate with. Shifting our self-talk, that inner dialogue, mastering that inner game, and then changing your perspective of failure from one of fear and it being an enemy to instead it's feedback and a teacher.
So now we're going to go back to that final section on the notes template and do that 4th power practice of reflection. So we want you to think about the things that we have covered in this session and write something down that you can reflect on. Maybe it's an idea that came to mind, an observation that you made, or something that stood out to you. And we would encourage you to reflect so that way you gain that wisdom, you gain the lesson from our time together.
So one thing that stood out to you, and we'll put our contact information on the screen. We'd be happy to stay in touch and help you in any way that we can.
Well, bravo, bravo. Someone wrote, actually, let me see if I can find this so I can tell you, but they basically said that this was the best webinar so far that they've ever attended. So bravo.
Thank you. Our pleasure to be with all of you.
Yes, the most important thing that I got out of this, and of course, everybody is going to have different takeaways, that reflection is so much harder now than it used to be. When I was in business We didn't have email. No, I know, shocking. We didn't have cell phones. Amazing. And yet we managed to communicate. But what it gave us was an opportunity to actually think before we responded to things. Whereas now, if it takes you 10 minutes to respond to an email, people are like, what the heck? I need to know this. Well, let me give that some thought. Can I give it some thought and do a little, pros and cons, or should I just, go from the hip? And I guess go from the hip is how we're doing it these days. But yeah, reflection. So very important. Just let your mind think about things and you'll come up with some creative resources.
Absolutely. I think one of the most inspiring things that we came across about reflection is that a lot of the great inventions that, have shaped our world today came from people when they were thinking, like standing in that, grocery line, and they thought of something and they just allowed their mind to think instead of being on their phone. It's those little pockets in our days that if we can allow our brain that chance to just think, we might actually come up with some great innovations.
And we can solve problems too.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we allow our minds to even just relax and kind of wander a bit, you can come up with a really great solution that if you're so stressed and focused trying to figure it out, you don't do your best work or come up with the best way of doing things.
Exactly. Yes. How many times have you given an answer and then later said, oh,
For sure.
I think that was the best answer.
Yeah.
Speaking about answers, our growth is, this is from Stephen, our growth is exponential. Is there a mentor who is familiar with this kind of growth? I'd like to think that all of our mentors are capable of helping you with this kind of growth, Stephen. That's part of being a mentor. Do you think, ladies?
For sure. I think that that's a great thing that you can ask questions of somebody who's just been a few steps down the road or maybe many steps farther down the road from where you are. And they will be invested because they see the potential and they've walked that road ahead already.
Yes. Theo, very interesting question, wants to know, why did you call your company Aretios?
Aretios, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. It's a little bit of a tricky word. It's inspired by a Greek word, arete, and that word means to do everything with excellence and purpose to its fullest potential. So the idea of Aretios is a life lived to the fullest, doing your absolute best and doing everything with excellence and purpose.
Great. Well, that's actually all the questions that people have.
All right.
I think they're so busy reflecting.
That's great. We gave you a lot to think about.
We did.
Did you ever? Oh my gosh, yes. Well, if you're interested in contacting the ladies, their information is on the screen. If you're interested in a SCORE mentor, it is score.org/Minnesota if you would like one from our area, or score.org, and you could just put in your zip code as you're applying, and they will assign it to a local chapter. There are over 300 chapters and thousands of, somebody said 10,000, I don't know. Yes, there's a question from Megan about where can you find a list of all of our upcoming webinars. Score.org/Minnesota. And there's a link there for you to see upcoming webinars. All right, ladies, thank you for sharing your expertise, your time, your knowledge. You are amazing. Everyone will be getting an email asking to evaluate the webinar and evaluate you. A score of 1 to 10, 9, 10 being the best. We don't really expect anything less than a 9 or a 10. And if it was possible, I'm sure people would be putting in something higher than that for you. All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And we look forward, maybe we'll have another session on a similar topic.
All right. Thank you so much for having us. Pleasure to be here.
Bye-bye, ladies. Bye all.